Welcome to Work in Progress, Conversations with Creators. I'm your host, Logan Royce Beitman. On today's special 4th of July edition of Work in Progress, I have with me the founding father of America, the band, Dewey Bunnell. I hope that you enjoy.
If you enjoy our podcast, please like and subscribe and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us bring you more content like this. You can find this episode and all of our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. See the show notes for a discount code on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading news.
Hello, Dewey. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Logan. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. And we're really especially excited to have you here on America's birthday. You know, this is July 4th week. And so what better way to celebrate than with a founding father of America?
There you go. Who knew? Yeah, 4th of July has always been a big one for our band.
Yeah. And speaking of which, you are not from America originally. Your dad is, but you were born in England and the band started in London. So yeah, tell us about that and how you got the name.
It's pretty confusing. We've always seen, direct from England, British band, America.
Right.
So there is confusion. We did start there, as you stated, because our fathers were stationed there with our families, of course. And so Jerry, Dan, and I both met in high school, graduated from that high school, American high school in 1969. And our sort of high school teen club band morphed into America. The key to that was writing our own material, and we were really chomping at the bit. We each had a handful of songs we'd written, and we'd been doing a lot of covers stuff. Each of us had other bands before we'd met in schools, started when we were whatever. I got my first guitar when I was about 11, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's where the confusion comes in. But we are Americans, all American citizens.
Yeah. And then, well, tell me about those first gigs that you had.
Well, we were very lucky we got a little attention because we were Americans. In fact, that's kind of why we picked the name America, because we were going around. London was a fairly concentrated music scene there. You didn't have to over here. You got Nashville and LA and
right.
New York. Everything was concentrated there in London, and we basically knocked on doors, met a couple people, a guy named Jeff Dexter, who was a kind of a character. He was a DJ / compere. He would be the guy on stage at the Isle of Wight Festival introducing Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
He was really plugged in, and he took us under his wing. And that's when we were able to get a few bucks together to do some demo tapes. And he was able to put us on the bill with some pretty heavyweights. We would do a 20-minute set in front of Pink Floyd or
wow,
The Who. I remember there was a place called the Roundhouse, which was a great venue. I would liken it to sort of Winterland or the Fillmore back in the U.S. in those days. And there was always big multi-act shows, and he shoehorned us in on lots of shows there. So we got some pretty good exposure right away.
Right.
And when you're opening for big bands, The Who and Elton John was just breaking at the time. Then you get also, reviewers in newspapers and music magazines coming to the shows. So we would get blurbs in there. Everything happened very quickly. We were really prepared for that, frankly.
And that's pretty. It is pretty extraordinary. I mean, just there from getting those gigs, being on, with those amazing artists, and then your first album having big hits, and you kind of blew up quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like? It must have been kind of mind blowing.
Well,
for a teenage kid, right? You're still teenagers.
It was. I mean, we had been doing sort of pubs and small little venues, outdoor festivals or something. And we really were just three guys on stools, a la CSN. We were very influenced by their first two albums that were out at that point. And
Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Crosby, Stills and Nash, yes. And the Neil Young albums. I mean, we loved Buffalo Springfield and the Byrds, and we talked a little bit earlier about the Beach Boys and the Beatles being the huge influences for virtually every young band.
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing new there, but we did enjoy that work, Stephen Stills and Neil Young songs, and we're working some of those up we would do some cover songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was really heady times to be. Suddenly, we were actually in the deep end of the pool, and everything snowballed. Warner Brothers signed us. We made that first album. We've been working. We knew those songs backwards and forwards, and we went in and recorded that first album in about 14 days or something, 13 days.
Amazing.
Because we just had all the vocals down. And it was just like I said, three guys sitting on stools. Jerry and Dan shared on a bass guitar now and then on a song. We'd have a bass guitar in a stand next to the three stools and us on stage. So we could throw that stuff in the back of a Ford Transit van and drive all over England and Holland. We did take the ferry over and do a lot of shows in Holland. Our Jeff Dexter, the guy taking care of us, had big connections over there. And so, we were already an international band.
Right. And I feel like on those early albums, and I think particularly the songs that you wrote, what I love about them is they have a really spare kind of quality, like an emotional honesty that's very beautiful and reminds me a little bit, some of Neil Young's songs have that quality as well.
Sure.
But it's something very special. And yeah, I'm wondering, I don't know how you
I
sort of
appreciate
arrived
that.
at that.
Well, I had done in high school, I did like poetry, and
Yeah.
English classes were important to me, and reading and so on. So lyrics were important to me, and I always gravitated to songs. You only have like 3.5 minutes max to tell a story, paint a picture, create some visuals. And I took that pretty seriously,
Yeah.
Once I got some themes to write about, and like with Horse with No Name, that was
Right.
inspired by actual time I spent in the desert back before we'd moved to England as a younger person. My dad and my uncles, our families were stationed in some remote Air Force bases, particularly my uncle's family down in New Mexico, and we've been out to the Mojave Desert. So it was inspired completely by the desert and trying to describe the sights and sounds of the desert. And I think I approach every song once I've got a theme or a thought with that in mind. How can I express whatever this is? I tend to write a lot of outdoor lyrics. We always said that Jerry writes the indoor songs and I write the outdoor songs. That was a simplistic way to say, but
sure.
The settings are outdoors.
Yeah, and I mean, Horse with No Name is, I think, the perfect New Mexico song. We're really thrilled to be having you here, where that song was, inspired.
Yeah.
And I love that, and I don't know how you feel, all these years later. Like I remember Warren Zevon saying that, listening to his early stuff, it's like going through his high school yearbook or something. Sometimes musicians are embarrassed, but I think it's an incredible song. And
Warren was right about that. Yeah, we constantly realize, why didn't we fix that vocal? All I had to do was replace that with one other word. You second guess yourself forever. It is what it is, and that's what stands the test of time, or that's what will always be there. And by and large, we were always happy with things. You could always polish things. Sometimes you can polish things too much. So you want to keep as much of a natural, like if you take 50 takes, you're going to start to lose some of that.
The freshness.
That freshness,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line, a balancing act.
Something I love about Horse with No Name is just like it's almost one note, I guess 1.5 or 2 notes, but it's like for like 43 measures or something until you get to the word horse, on a horse with no, and it's like, oh, we sink down. And I think, probably if, I don't know, you go to like songwriting school or you talk to record producers, they're like, don't have like 43 measures of one note.
Don't do that.
But it's like, it works so well because it's like you kind of put us in a trance, and I really feel like I've been out in the desert for days, the monotony of it, and and then it kind of changes.
I can consciously remember that song kind of leading me more than me leading it. It's in a weird tuning we were all playing with tunings of Joni Mitchell tunings, and it was a thing, instead of standard tuning. Don't want to get too technical with your listeners that aren't guitar players, but you have a standard tuning for guitar, but you can play with those pegs and tune it.
Well, for those who are guitar players, what's the tuning?
Oh, it's really weird. The two E's are down to D. Then the A is up to G. Wait a minute. I'd have to look.
Well, it's all right. But like when you play now, like, do you have different guitars and you just pull that one out to play that song? Because it has to be, or you know.
Yeah. Well, our tech, Travis Jameson, he has one over there that's tuned to that.
Yeah.
Horse is actually like the two E's to D, then the A to E, then you got your next D, and the G to B. 6. Yeah, that's what that is. D, E, D, G, B, D.
Right.
And then of course that doesn't tell you anything unless you know where to put your fingers at that point.
Right.
I mean, I'd have to physically show anybody and I do sometimes show them.
So you're just kind of like playing around, experimenting, moving the knobs and stuff.
Say that again. Sorry, Logan.
Like you were just kind of experimenting, playing around, moving the knobs.
Yeah, I was just the tuning pegs. These two songs sound good together. It really is. You're out in the wasteland trying to find a chord. The idea with detunings is that you can tune the guitar to a particular chord, and then you only have to bar it up and down the neck, and you got it's. Again, for those who play guitar, they know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
But then you can make little different chords out of it. It's just the voicings then sound a little different. You may end up playing a regular old C chord, but you're doing it. It's a different combination of those strings that create that chord. And so you just get a subtle different sound to it. But sometimes, like in the case of that, and I'm only moving one other finger when I'm chording it, it did get into the loping, the horse. So that's when I say it kind of led me to. I didn't look for another chord. I thought, this is great. When I wanted to write something, I already had a few words about the desert.
Yeah.
On the first part of the journey. And then it really wrote itself. You'll hear other writers say that. I wrote that thing in about 30 minutes, which is pretty true to that song.
Yeah. And I mean, I've heard you on other interviews be kind of self-deprecating about this song, but I really think it's incredible. And I know my dad especially felt like it was a very mystical song. He felt like, it's like a person being guided by some, the horse is some sort of inner part of
all
you
of that is true. Yeah. For me, it was the same thing. The desert is a mystical place for me. Nature in general is, but I really love that ecosystem out there, that quiet.
Yeah.
The first thing I met was a fly with a buzz. Things that I just was really reminiscing, and it had been several years since I'd been back in the U.S., let alone back in the desert areas when we were there. So it was, you draw from your experiences in songwriting.
And then it's like maybe the third verse or something where the ocean is a desert with its life underground. It's like, okay, now we're in a different place. Like if we weren't sure before, I feel like, it's either some mystical landscape or it's a metaphor.
Well, he got to the horse had taken him to the coast, basically.
Yeah, I guess he gets to California.
Technically, I suppose you could say that. But then the ocean is a desert with its life, meaning, under the water down there on the bottom is kind of another desert. And so that was the image I was trying to.
Yeah, the surface looks like a desert. It's water. It's the opposite of a desert because it's all water, but it's just an expanse of nothing. But underneath is all the life teeming.
Here we go, Logan. We're doing this again. This song has a life of its own. It's followed us around our whole career. Yeah. But we made a lot of albums and had lots of other songs out there.
Sure. And I'm sorry.
Part also.
So let's talk about Hearts, because this is the 50th anniversary of that album, which is it's kind of the second album on this different. Well, anyway, tell me about, you're working with a different producer, and it's a little bit more elaborate, a little bit more produced, and maybe more.
We got into Well, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to think of the songs on that album, but we'd certainly learned a lot of tricks. We learned a lot of things in the studio and had some sounds we wanted to hear on that. I have to listen to it. I should have done my homework. It's been a while since I listened to it.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull
Mr.
up
Golden
the
Hair is
album
on
now.
that album, which was
Yes,
our
yes.
second #1 single. In fact, Jerry's contributions were really big on Hearts. His songs, Daisy Jane was also a huge hit and is still a great favorite. Another
Midnight, Old Virginia, People in the Valley is a great song.
that was a little different for me because I'd never written on the piano. I don't play piano, but I did some 3-finger chords, bang, 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 and came up with that one. So that's a little out of character for me, that song. What else?
That one, it reminded me a little bit of the Kinks. I don't know if that...
maybe a little bit. Yeah. Never saw
maybe,
the Kinks.
No.
I like the Kinks. Yeah, they were a great band.
Yeah. You met the Beatles?
I've met the Beatles in separate, never when they were the Beatles, of course, but with George Martin, met Paul McCartney. I met John Lennon a couple of times at a party, coincidentally, when you mentioned parties, big record plant party.
Oh, yeah.
The record plant in LA was a real gathering place for both for recording albums. We recorded several albums there, and then different heavyweight bands and people. Lennon was in there, and Harry Nilsson. And then George Harrison, I'd met a few times. He invited me out to his house with Joni Mitchell. That was a great day. I'll never forget that day. That was
what was that like? What did you guys do?
Well, Joni was in town. We knew Joni well from being in David Geffen's office. We were managed by him after we came back to LA.
Yeah.
Or to LA for the first time. So Joni, we were back in England, might have been back in England making the fourth album, Holiday, with George Martin. But Joni was there in town with Jackson Browne, her opener. And we met and hung out a little. And one thing led to another. And George Harrison was with her. And we were introduced. And he said, well, if you're not doing anything tomorrow, come on out. And he gave me his address and everything.
Yeah.
And I ended up taking a London cab all the way out to George Harrison's house. I thought, what a dream I'm in here.
Yeah, yeah.
And the first guy when I knocked on the door was open, actually, as I recall. Boy, security was bad in those days. And I walked in, hello, nobody's here. And the first guy who came out the door was George. Yeah. Hi, George. So he was really nice. I enjoyed the time, which wasn't a lot. This is not like close friends or we talk regular or anything like that. But the times, I am a good friend. I can say close friend with Ringo. Ringo's very public and we see him a lot. And I love Ringo. So met the four of them, never saw them live or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think of Ringo's new country album?
I've only heard a little bit of it. Don't tell him. I'm going to listen. I think it's great. I think it's hard.
Great. Yeah.
He's really an active guy. I hope I am that lucid and humorous and physically adept because he's 84, 85 now, 84 at least, I think. So he's doing great.
He looks great. Yeah, he sounds great. And so
he's a great guy. I love him.
Yeah, what's it like hanging out with him? I mean, he seemed, his public persona, it's like very funny. And, is he just the same in person?
He's got that funny sort of cryptic, of course you do. I'd say, hey, Ringo, those glasses look like the ones you wore on Rubber Soul or Revolver or something. Well, of course you would say that. Yeah. He's always got a little.
That's a pretty good Ringo impression.
A little jab, yeah. Yeah. Well, he's just a great guy. He's funny, but he doesn't suffer fools. He's probably. I can only imagine what's happened in Ringo's life in terms of people and everybody excited. It's always great. You never kind of get over being around a Beatle, I guess.
Yeah, I guess not. But you're friends now, so it's, I mean, is there a point where like kind of you start maybe with some hero worship, or did you feel nervous as a teenager when you were starting to meet all these guys who are your heroes?
I've never been very good at that. I'm not that great, just boldly walking up to someone. I have done that before.
Yeah.
But but mostly I watch from afar. And yeah, and I've been a big listener of music for many years. I don't listen as much as I should anymore with new music, but we used to pick apart every new album. We couldn't wait to go, vinyl days, of course, and then all the
Yeah.
formats. But uh, so then you start to know these people by their music, and you look at them a little differently right away. Oh, that's the guy who did that. Wow. So,
Right, right.
it is, we're all fans to some degree. I know I certainly am, and I know what I like. And I know who I respect a lot. Virtually all those artists are important.
Yeah, and I was, gonna ask earlier about, like, kind of those parties and stuff, especially in, like, the Laurel Canyon and that kind of time and place, with all these rock stars, and, I assume you were all, like, doing drugs and, having, like, kind of I don't know how
Big
wild it
piles
was
of
or
drugs, Logan.
what's
Well,
that?
I mean, yeah, piles of drugs.
Yeah.
No, I mean, marijuana was the thing. In England, we
Yeah.
smoked hash. There was no green grass.
Oh, yeah.
It's so weird to think back to. That's a long time ago now, but smoking hash was a real common thing in Europe.
Yeah.
And so that's what we kind of did dabble in. Hanging out at the pub was more likely, drinking
Uh-huh.
pints and going back to work on our songs. But yeah, when we got out to LA, and of course the Laurel Canyon scene was already a legendary thing before we got
Right.
there. And it wasn't like you can just step into that club, although we did get lumped into them because we were managed by David Geffen, and all of them. JD Souther we became close with, and in those days, and Jackson Brown, they opened for our band because we showed up as like, who are these kids? They've got a big #1 record and album, and we've been at this for several years, or at least a handful of years, and now we've got Jackson Brown opening for us on tour, and we've got
Yeah.
JD Souther. So I think we were the young upstarts to that degree. But it was fun, and each artist, like I think we talked earlier, is on their own path, and they've got their own decisions to make and their own booking of recording studios, and their agents are booking them on tours. It's not like we're all sitting around in a room, you know, planning what we're each going to do. Everybody's on a trail, and we
Yeah.
were certainly on ours. We had to get the second album recorded and follow everything up. And Warner Brothers was banging on it, get going. We had a lot of music then because we were writing prolifically. It seemed like every day
Yeah.
Jerry'd say, I got one here, I got one, Dan. So we had a lot of material to work with. The second and third albums we produced ourselves. Second album had Ventura Highway
Yeah.
and Don't Cross the River was a hit, of
Mhm.
Dan's. Third album, Hat Trick, we really got immersed in the studio and probably got too immersed. We ended up doing a cover song. It was called Muskrat Candlelight. We renamed it Muskrat Love.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, we were just on a tear with it. It was written by a guy named Willis Allen Ramsey. And right away, David Geffen wasn't really happy with that. What are you doing in someone else's song for when you
Yeah, yeah,
guys
yeah.
write your own? So we said, well, we like this song, and we've got a great version of it, and we're going to do this. And we probably overruled him, and it didn't do as well. Then the fourth album, we realized we need a producer.
Right.
So we were able to get a meeting with George Martin, which was great. Another big hero of ours, produced all the Beatle records. Wow, wouldn't that
Yeah.
be great? And he said, "Sure, lads, I've got nothing going now." And we already had a track record, so he could see it was like we were new artists.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we made Holiday. We did come back to
Right.
England to do that because George said, "You must come and use my studio in London." And
Yeah.
we got Tin Man was a big hit from that
Tin
one.
Man is an amazing song, and that was one that you wrote, right?
I wrote that one. I wrote
Yeah.
Ventura Highway too.
Right, which is
And that was
amazing, yeah.
based on the lyrics to that one. Speaking of lyrics, was another visual. I wrote it in England. It was hardly the Ventura Highway out there in drizzly old England, but
Right.
it was, my dad had been stationed again at a base in California it was 1963, because I do remember the assassination, JFK,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we were driving up and down that coast to LA and went through this town called Ventura. I thought, wow. and the sea was out there, the sun and surf. It was
Yeah.
where the Beach Boys started and everything. So
Right.
that's what inspired Ventura Highway.
Yeah, no, it's so beautiful, you know. I wonder, you know, how, like being from a military family and being kind of, you know, a hippie. Like, I know that you know you've said that your parents were supportive, but was there any kind of like a conflict or you know of world views?
There never was. I mean, my dad's commanding officer was told, got a note. My dad got a note in his box that the base commander says your son's hair is getting a bit long.
Right.
And guess what? The base commander was Jerry's dad.
Oh, really?
My partner, Colonel
That's funny. That's
Colonel
funny.
Beckley, was the base commander. This was out in England. But
Yeah.
no, other than you got to get a haircut. My dad was always supportive of the music. He's still alive, by the way. Just
Oh,
turned
wow.
94 last week.
Wow, amazing.
He's very, very frail,
Yeah.
and my mom loved it. She embraced it all. I'd always said to myself, I wish she had seen when we got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, because that would have been
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
That would have been a pinnacle of success. But she'd passed away by then.
Yeah. What about the other you know your bandmates? Was it because I just think you know you're all from military families. I assumed there was an element of rebellion, but maybe not. They were very
Well,
supportive.
you know, we did live in a very, and the military world has its own rules and regulations. If you live on base, my dad always tried to get off base housing with whatever budget they gave him. You had the choice at times. If you lived
Yeah.
off base, which was the case in England, because they had an area kind of like it. But I mean, yeah, you had to adhere to certain things when you're on base, as ID cards but as you say, it was a time. We were there from 66, I think, through 72. After
Right.
the band broke and was totally successful, we immediately decamped back to the, to the parent company, Warner Brothers, which, as you said, is in LA, and our first times in LA.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were part of our generation. You know, we were growing our hair and going to rock festivals and concerts and seeing all kinds of great music.
Jimi Hendrix and The
Yeah, I
Who
saw
and
Jimi Hendrix at the Royal Albert Hall. Led
yeah.
Zeppelin had formed, went and saw them at the Albert Hall. American bands would come over. We did see Joni Mitchell and Neil Young in solo concert setting, where it was just Neil coming out with his acoustic guitars and a piano, and likewise with Joni.
Right.
Fantastic shows.
Yeah.
I mean, it just inspired us even that much more from the records to see them live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grateful Dead came over once. Sly and the Family Stone, American bands, not that many, because we didn't realize a whole lot of different artists were breaking over here in the U.S. and they didn't make it to the charts over there, or they weren't even imported. Kids had to wait for imports. So some American kids who were new arrivals would bring these albums. I always remember Steppenwolf, I'd never heard of.
Mm.
And here was this huge band, Born to Be Wild. Still to this day, one of my favorite, I think, single rock songs is Born to Be Wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, but they weren't there to see, and the records weren't there. Then you'd have to order them or something.
Right.
It
Right.
was different. But we were totally supported by our families, and we didn't get out of hand too much. We weren't arrested or anything.
Yeah. You loved Born to Be Wild, but you weren't so wild as people might have
We're so
assumed.
wild. We were wild enough, Logan.
You were wild enough. Well, probably,
I had. See, this is one of the reasons we're not on a lot of shows. We don't have enough dirt. There's just not much dirt in America's history.
But maybe it's why you've survived this long, and other bands, burned out more quickly.
I think probably so. I mean, the fact that we moved around all our lives as families in the military,
Yeah.
you really hold on to whatever you can, because you're going to lose it soon. You leave friends, you move to another city, another state, or in some cases, the other country. And so you really cherish the things you can hold around you. And I think Jerry and Dan and I, when we got together, did cherish each other's company and each other's views and perspective on things. And so we were in our own bubble. And we didn't let the outside, wreck things too much.
Yeah. And let me ask you, because I know, you've never been particularly political in your music, especially compared to someone like Neil Young. But since you are America and this is America's birthday, do you have any thoughts about the state of the United States of America today?
Well, that's a loaded question. I'll just start by saying, yes, we really didn't express our political views, and we didn't really have strong political views. I think that comes with age even more. I am a registered Democrat, if that tells anybody anything. So times are a little unsettled for us right now. I mean, I want the best for our country, whether it doesn't matter which party or who's in office. Right now, I'm feeling not that, if you will, but time will tell. We are a free country, and everybody has rights, and we will watch and help in whatever way we can. But it's unsettling at the moment.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that you're still out there singing and making great music. And I think there's something, even if you're not overtly political, there's something very, very human, very humanistic about your music. And I think that's...
I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Yeah, what's right for humanity and what is the right thing to advocate or support. And, I'm an environmentalist, and I do worry a lot about environmental concerns. That's as political as I probably would get as far as really getting out. But it's important to be part of your community and your country, and we're very patriotic in that sense. We love. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool American and love my country.
Yeah, wonderful. And I don't know. You love touring? Are you excited about the tour?
Yeah, I'm getting there, though. I've got to say, I mean, at this moment, we'd gone on a long hiatus after 2023, and it was kind of a virtual retirement. And after about 6 months, I called Jerry. Our agent had called and said, there's a bunch of offers stacking up. This was late 2023 that they were starting to stack up. And so into early 2024, Jerry lives in Australia half the year, and I'm calling you from Wisconsin. Or we're speaking from Wisconsin. We spend half our year here in Wisconsin. So we talk, long distance a lot. But he said, nah, I'm done, I don't want to do it. I said, well, our agent, Akiko Rogers, has got a bunch of offers. I may entertain the idea. What do you think if I get the band back together? Getting the band back together. That's the other thing. We have players in our band that have been with us 20 plus years and crew and everything. And I thought I had some shows left in me. And he said, sure. He was totally supportive. So all last year I toured with our guys, and we've picked it back up this year. And I'll probably go into 2026 just up until about this time. I'm going to do one more year. But the weekender shows, we go out on a Thursday and play a Friday and Saturday or something and come back. So it's not like slogging in the day when we do 3 months away from home.
Right.
You come back like you'd been on another planet. And, that could have been the hash, Logan. It was like, now it's a little easier to do, but I am getting old. That's that. The bottom line is age.
You look great, and I'm sure you still sound great.
Well, I'm very grateful for my voice. It's still there, and I can still perform, and I've got most of my digits and everything's working, and I have a fantastic band. The 4 guys backing me are wonderful guys, all super musicians, super talented. We get along well. So every aspect of the road, barring the travel itself, which can be grueling, and that's what I'm basically talking about, the 3 a.m. wake-ups and going to airports, and that part has lost its luster. But the shows are great, and I am looking forward. We're picking it back up. We've had several weeks off now, and we're starting up again next week. So
great. Well, we're thrilled and excited and can't wait to see you here in New Mexico. And thank you so much for speaking with me today.
My
This is
pleasure,
wonderful.
Logan. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.
Thank you.